Hi, my name is Tomasz and you're watching Casual DIY channel. In today's episode I will be reviewing my Charnwood bandsaw B250. So stick around and check out my findings. So I had this bandsaw for probably nearly 2 years, and you can check the video of assembling the bandsaw and the initial test on my channel. I'll link it up above and down below. You can check it out to see what I thought about it then, and come back to this video to see if my mind has changed about this machine and if I actually had any issues or problems with it. So if you haven't seen that video, go and check it now and come back to this one. But if you are good to go, let's talk about a few specs about this machine. First of all, this is a DIY bandsaw. I would not recommend it for anybody that's actually got a business in carpentry or anything like that. This is a DIY model and that's how it needs to be treated. So this is a 10-inch bandsaw for about £370. So it's definitely not the cheapest you can get on the market, but I have to say it's definitely far better that you can buy from Aldi and Lidl for about 100 quid. It's a totally different league and this is definitely far better. But let's quickly go through some specs. Well, actually they are located on the back of machine. So the motor is 375 watts. Now what I found with that power is sometimes actually not enough. I mainly use two blades on it. The first one, the rib blade, which is a 1/2 inch blade. And just to mention, the length of the blades are 1826 millimeters. So that's the length of the blade you will require for this bandsaw. And the second blade I was using is 1/4 inch 6 TPI. If you want all that information, I will try to post it down below in the description of this video so you know exactly what blades this bandsaw can actually use. So yes, I actually found the machine to be sometimes a little bit underpowered, especially with the rib blades on and cutting through some harder materials like oak or sapele. It sometimes did struggle a little bit, and that's even with a new blade. So yeah, a little bit not enough power in my opinion, and looking from the perspective I would actually choose the bigger bandsaw, the 14-inch one, rather than the 10-inch one. But that's only based on my personal usage of this machine, and I can see that 14-inch would be actually more suitable for my needs. But for you, 10-inch may be actually perfect size. The cast iron table, the size of it is 360 by 320 millimeters, so it's a fairly good and decent size, and I've got no bad things about it. It's solid, is straight, and I had no issues with it at all. The max cutting depth is 150 millimeters, so it's a fairly decent amount. Although if you were to try to actually cut through that depth of oak or anything hard like that, you will actually struggle. As I mentioned before, the engine seems to be a little bit underpowered. The throat depth itself is 245 millimeters. As I mentioned before, the blade is 1826 millimeters in length, and it can handle blades from 6 to 12 millimeters in width. Hence the rib blade I'm actually using, that 13 millimeters, is just about fitting in the runners itself. But after some adjustments, I actually had no issues with it. So with the machine, as you can see, you've got some nifty storage here for some keys there to use around your machine. But to be absolutely honest with you, I actually find them quite useful around the workshop. At the top, you've got the adjustment of the height of the top wheel, so you can adjust the tension of your blades. A little bit lower there, you can adjust the angle of the top wheel left to right to make sure the wheel is in the right position and the blade is running straight. And adjusting that is actually not too bad. You've got a locking knob at the back, and obviously the front one changes the angle of the wheel itself. As you can see, you also got the light, and I have to say it's actually very good, and it's a very cool addition to this bandsaw, especially when you're cutting smaller patterns. It does come in quite handy. And at the bottom here, you've got the adjustment from the bottom wheel but I have to say it's very difficult to use, and I have managed to actually set it up once and it's been fine since then. But yeah, it's not the easiest thing to actually set up. So if your bandsaw is running fine, I wouldn't actually touch that because you can ruin it. And as you can see, you've got the port for the dust at the back. Works fine. I wouldn't say it's the best dust collection, and I have to say the overspray is actually quite significant, especially if you're ripping wood with the rip blades. It definitely generates a lot of dust, and it does go everywhere. The machine comes with a push stick. It comes quite handy if you haven't got one. The on and off switch for the lights is just located above the switch on button, and again it's got a safety feature which I think every single machine should have. You can just press it and the machine goes off. At the bottom of the machine you've got a tray for the dust if you haven't got a dust extraction connected. Now you've got a couple of safety features. If you unlock the top shelf, the machine will not run, and it's exactly the same thing for the bottom shelf as well, which is obviously good from a safety perspective. Now what I found, again, the dust collects absolutely everywhere, and the maintenance of this machine, it's an absolute must to use your shop vac from time to time to make sure there's no dust in there. But it's actually even worse down below, where if you're doing a lot of rip cuts, please make sure to actually check it, because there's tons of dust despite of the dust collection extraction connected. So that's one of the things you have to watch out for with this machine. Now I already mentioned the table. I had no issues with it, absolutely dead square, and you do have some options to actually level it. You've got a level screw, a bolt of some sort over here to make sure it stays where it needs to be. You've got some adjustments underneath. You can actually tilt this table to 45, from 0 to 45 degrees if you have to, but I found that it's not very accurate. The dials underneath, they're not very accurate, so I would actually use a separate gauge to make sure you've got the right angle that you wanted to have. One of the things that I found fairly annoying is this locking knob here. Thanks to this, you've got the guard that's going up and down depending on the size of material you're cutting, and obviously please bear in mind that I'll use it. If you're cutting something smaller, make sure the guard goes lower, because then you're going to have a better stability of the blade and you won't come across any issues. But it's like a two-part knob where you've got the exterior one that locks the interior one, and it sometimes gets stuck, and because it's plastic, it's actually, there's not a lot you can do. I try to use some lubricants as well, and from time to time it just really gets stuck and it's very difficult to undo. Or it could be just my strong grip and I just overdo it a little bit. But that's one of the things that annoys me a little bit, to be fair. But the biggest problem I actually found with this machine is to change the blades. Now I more or less got the rip blade on constantly because I cannot be bothered to change it to the other blade. Now, it's such a hassle to remove this and put a new blade. There's so much work that you have to do to reset the whole mechanism at the top and at the bottom of the machine so the blade actually sits accurate. The bearings here are absolutely pants, and in my opinion that in the wrong position, and the adjustment is just not enough for this machine. Even with the smaller blade, I found it very hard to adjust it, so the blade would not actually run on the bearings itself. It only runs on them when you obviously push it side to side, but it's very hard to set up and you're very limited with setting it up. The one underneath is even worse because you've got the table on top. Now, yes, you can remove the table, but then it's actually very hard to set it up because you're not sure where the blade needs to be exactly. So not the best of setting it up, to be absolutely honest with you. And if you're planning to use one type of blade, then you're fine. You won't really have this hassle and you will be absolutely fine. But sometimes if you need to use a rip blade or a different blade for some more intricate work, then it is a hassle to actually change it. And to be fair, it takes me about a good 40 minutes to change the blades and making sure that the whole mechanism is actually set up correctly. I had a few comments in the past saying that people got this machine and the cuts are really bad. They changed the blades and the cuts are still really bad. bad and the machine is running incorrectly. But they have never actually adjusted the bearings on the top and the bottom, and they are moaning that the cuts are wrong, when unfortunately, guys, if you are changing the blades, you just have to adjust the bearings. And to be absolutely honest with you, from time to time, after, I don't know, probably every 2-3 months, I actually double check my bearings. I clean them all up because they gather so much dust, and it's just a constant maintenance with this machine to make sure it's actually running correctly. So you have to bear that in mind. So the machine obviously comes with a fence, and I have to say it's a really good fence. It's a solid one made from aluminium, but it's straight. I have not had any issues with it, and it just does the job. It's fine. It's well thought, well designed, and the only thing I can say, maybe the front face is a little bit too short. It should be a little bit higher because you can do rip cuts up to 15 centimeters. And obviously this fence is only 6 centimeters in height, so I would expect something higher. But again, it's not a massive problem. Get a piece of plywood on top of it and you'll be absolutely fine. And there's ways to actually connect it, so it's not a major issue. It also comes with a mitre gauge, but it's actually a very solid design of a mitre gauge, and I'm actually very impressed with it. With the options you've got, the adjustments, and how it's made really well. And you don't really get a lot of mitre gauges that are that well designed. So this one is definitely a plus. If you're going to be using some mitre cuts, I can tell you that this is a fantastic feature that this machine comes with. If you want to see how this machine actually works and performs, go and check out my initial video, because that performance has not changed and is absolutely the same as it was. Overall, it's a little bit difficult for me to recommend this machine. It costs a lot of money, but I feel it under-delivers the performance. I would definitely go with the bigger version with a lot more power. 375 watts, it doesn't seem enough for this machine, and to be honest, what I do. If you were looking for a really DIY bandsaw, I would head and check out Peter Millard's video on his videos about bandsaws. Those videos are definitely worth a watch. So for the money this machine actually costs, I don't think I would recommend it. It's a good solid tool, but for the money, 370 quid, I think it really under-delivers, especially with the lack of power, and the adjustment of the bearings is really annoying. So if you have to change the blades often, it will do your head in. It does mine, and it's very frustrating. Also, adjusting the wheels inside from the knobs at the back, again, it can take you hours to get it absolutely right. It could be so frustrating with the machine, but other than that, there isn't really any major issues. So it's a bit of a tough one for me, to be absolutely honest with you. I'm not 100% happy with it, but on the other hand, it fails me very rarely when I'm actually trying to push a large piece of wood, especially hardwood like oak and anything like that, and it does struggle there. So that's my thoughts about this machine. I'm definitely going to be changing it. It will stay where it is until I buy something a lot larger, maybe sometime in the future. But in the end, guys, these are my personal experience of this particular machine. You may have a different experience with the same model but different machine. It could be running far better than mine or far worse, you don't know. It's just one of the random things in the world. But I hope this was a little bit informative to you. If you've got any more questions, obviously drop me some comments down below and I'll try to answer to my best knowledge and my ability. Obviously, in the next few weeks, there will be a few more reviews of the tools I've got. So if you want to stay tuned in for those, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and also encourage you to check a list of my videos that should be just over here. Where I'm actually changing my workshop to something that it is now, and it tell you what, it was a long way. So go ahead, check out those videos there on how I upgrade my workshop, and that's it from me today. Have a fantastic week.